And up next, we're on to have with us Mr. Fernando Bernabe, Chief Operating Officer, VP of Sales, Cisco Asia Pacific, Japan, and Greater China, to share with us on the topic of innovating for a securely connected future. Let's put our hands together to welcome Fernando on stage. Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to be back in Hong Kong. I can tell you to start with that AI is not going to replace comedians anytime soon. I was trying to find a good joke to start this conference. It's always a good advice, right, to say a good joke. And I checked on ChatGPT last night. And the best that it could give me is that why so many good people come to this conference, technology conference? And the answer was because it has good GPS. I was like, GPS? Great presenters and speakers. And I will add to that, great politicians and speakers, right? But so I don't think it was a good joke, but I just wanted to use it as a warm-up. I'm very glad to be back here. The last time I was here, I was with my family. We went to Disneyland, we did the classical stuff, and I've been in the region already for 16 years, right? And 6 of those in Greater China in Shanghai. So for us at Cisco, a lot of what I'm going to be talking today is really related to pragmatic experience that we have with our customers, with governments, with universities, on how to address the challenge of cybersecurity. Because we are talking in this conference about digitization and the accelerated pace. But unless this pace is secure, it will not progress. And that's becoming a bigger challenge these days. And I call it the 3 Cs. First of all, everything is connected, hyper-connected, to an extent that has never been before. Second, it's much more complex. Third, it makes it very cumbersome for IT managers, executives, government officials to manage this progress, because complexity is extremely difficult to deal if you do it in a linear way. So let me start first with the connected world. Today, what we have is multiple users, and users also includes not just people, but also devices and things, sensors, Internet of Everything, and they connect from anywhere. Could be at the airport, could be from home, it could be at the office, it could be at a branch, it could be anywhere, right? And that has become even more prevalent after COVID. And what do? They connect to apps. And those apps, again, can be anywhere. Can be on-prem, on data center from the company. Could also be on a private cloud, or could be on a web scaler in a public cloud. Right? And that makes that connectivity, which seems very simple, is actually quite complex. This is just 3 examples. Right at the bottom, you have a Singapore connection from a Singapore office. In the middle, you have a branch in Bangalore with devices, sensors, to control smart building. And then at the top, you have somebody in a Tokyo cafe. And what you see in this diagram is that between the users on the left and all the way to the apps, there's a lot of magic that happens that most people have no idea. Many of the IT professionals are the unsung heroes of this transformation, because to make this is not easy. So you could have a direct connection through a VPN, a mobile network, into your network. You could have a connection through the local ISP. You could be on a wireless LAN and a gateway. Then the cloud connectivity and infrastructure is very different if you're using a telco, you're using your intranet, or you're using a wireless network, for example. And finally, as I said before, the applications could be on-prem, could be on a web scaler, could be also directly into the internet. As a result, the level of complexity is increasing tremendously, exponentially. This is something very common that all our customers are telling us these days, that it's very hard to cope with the pace. And the reason for that is because you need many more money to address this the old way. You have to deal with a much more complex picture. It's very hard to find talent that can do this, so the capabilities are sort of linear. The complexity goes exponential. And in the end, what we're trying to solve is very simple, right? Users, they want to connect the easiest way possible. I mean, how many of you are trying to connect to your apps, and they have to go through multiple authentications. Security is almost stepping into your productivity because it's not just frictionless. From a security operations perspective, it's the opposite. They want to have full visibility of every user, device, connection, and applications that are being used. And finally, if you are the network provider, the IT provider, you want to be sure that you are not delaying the acceleration of digitization in your company. So they look very conflicted, right? The users want, don't bother me, I want to connect quickly. Security wants to check on everything, and then IT in the middle needs to make all of this, the magic happen, right? And this is full of risk, right? This data is from our latest cybersecurity readiness index. This data is specific. We just published it last week. This data that I show here is specific to Hong Kong. So this is a worldwide study. I just pulled out the data from Hong Kong. So this confirms what I was just saying in the first 3 slides, right? 25% of employees in Hong Kong hop at least between 6 networks on a weekly basis. So different ways to access to the data to get the job done. 82% of the companies that we polled says their employees access the company platforms from unmanaged devices. This could be your own mobile that is not managed, secure by the company, by the IT systems, and you access maybe through a VPN. 36% of those spend 20% of their time, 2 hours a day, basically on company networks with unmanaged devices. This creates a massive cyber risk, right? And in fact, the two main, this is quite common around the world, the two main things that are being described as the challenges are malware and phishing, right? And we heard about that only early in the conference. When you look at the cyber attacks that companies in Hong Kong experienced in the last 12 months, 42% mentioned social engineering. Social engineering is when somehow you are deceived to provide your identity, and then that identity is used to get into your systems, to get either your finances, your banking information, or even access to your computer. So 42% mentioned that they had been attacked by that. Then you have another 38% credential stuffing. Credential stuffing is when, through a vulnerability, a hacker can get into a service and then use that access to that service to log into another service. So from one entry point that looks not very risky, they can access to others. Supply chain, 26%. And we know how important it is, supply chain, in a place like Hong Kong. And finally, cryptojacking, when your computer is being taken to compute data for crypto mining, it's a whopping 28%. When we look at AI and what's about to come, and we are just really, really in the early days of AI, 9% of the executives we talk to, they already point that this is going to become a massive challenge for us. How do we solve this? So at Cisco, this is based on many years of experience on security, not just on networking. Most of you will know us from our networks. But since the 2000s, we have been investing in what I will argue, the broadest, deepest portfolio in the industry. We have a concept that abstracts, because you cannot control this anymore from the environment of a closed enterprise, right? As I said before, everything is hybrid, everything is connected from anywhere. So the only way you can manage this is by really getting to that same playing field. And that means that you need to abstract the control points from the network, from the infrastructure, in software manner, and manage them from a cloud perspective, which is what I'm going to show you very briefly now. We have 3 main areas. One is about user protection, so very simple cases, cloud protection, and breach protection if something happens. User protection. The philosophy is very simple, and all of you, I assume, as users, will love to hear that it should be as simple as authenticate once, get to work. You shouldn't be bothered. Again, once you are authenticated properly, you shouldn't be worried. Now, there's a couple of exceptions, right? Now, behind that is very complex, right? Because you could have some applications that are traditional applications that go through a VPN. More modern applications go through zero trust. Then you have still the SaaS applications. and direct internet access applications. So all the magic somehow needs to happen underneath, right? You need to merge Zero Trust and VPN. You need to merge the data that you get in from the firewalls with the data that you get in from the services and the applications. Our solution handles that pumping, so the user doesn't see it. And as a result, what you see is that if you're a user connected in the office, you authenticate once. You may be accessing to Salesforce, Concur, your own marketing application. Then you decide to close your laptop. You want to have a coffee. You're meeting somebody in the cafe downstairs. Take the laptop, go down. Want to show something to this person. The system will detect that though it's you, it's the same laptop, it's a different network access now. So remember that chart I showed with all the different ways that you can connect? That means that creates a potential risk, particularly if it's in public Wi-Fi. So the system will ask you to re-authenticate one more time. So this is what we call the least privilege access. So you are given access as long as you don't change the pattern of either your device or your location, how you connect, and the applications that you see. The second one is cloud protection. So I was talking just a moment about users connecting to apps, and then how do we control a network, how do we control that? The same concept should apply between apps connecting to other apps. So in this example, imagine that you have a marketing application running on AWS, on the public cloud. That eventually is going to access the customer database that you're going to have in your private cloud. The way this is done today is typically a direct connection. And that creates a risk, because if in that marketing application there's some vulnerability, it all of a sudden, your direct access to your own customer database is given automatic access to the rest of the private cloud. Because there's no language exchange between the application in the public cloud and your private cloud. How do you solve this? You need to have something that speaks IP. So most of the applications that are developed in enterprises today are associated to an IP address. So on the left, you speak IP. On the right, you speak services. Most of the applications developed in public cloud providers use Lambda. They don't use IP addresses. So you need a system that connects the two. If you don't connect the two, there's no way you can assure that you're going to have security here. We understand both. We have access to both. And what we propose is precisely that bridge that creates the security pathway. So that, for example, an application in marketing, it's only accessing the customer database, nothing else. If you have a developer that is doing something on the AWS cloud, shouldn't only be able to access the developer database on your private cloud. And again, for that, you need that translation. That's why we call Zero Trust applied also from app to app, authorized access only. And not only has to work on AWS, has to work on Azure, has to work on Google Cloud, has to work on any cloud that you use. Again, this is the complexity. If you look today, you talk to any CISOs in the market, they're going to tell you, oh, AWS can do that for me, but AWS cannot do my private cloud. Or I need to talk to Azure to do something slightly different, or Google to do something different, right? That's what's creating the complexity. The third one is breach protection. And this is the one probably many of you users will feel more related to, which is, when you get a phishing email and it looks very very legit. These days, the emails are using that the attackers are using are done with ChatGPT, and it's almost hard to realize unless you're really paying a lot of attention that it's a funny email, right? And typically what happens when you do that is they will ask you to click something to go somewhere, organizational announcement, or see this picture that you are being shown somewhere, and it will take you to a website that looks legit. That website probably is only being created a week, 2 weeks before for the scam, for the ransomware. The moment you click there, then funny processes start happening You already got embedded the malware, and that starts creating a process, right? You've been attacked. And unfortunately, so what you can do today, for most customers, either you know already the vulnerability, you know the risk, and therefore you immediately stop. You don't allow the application to the user to connect to the app, or you know that it's actually good, and then no problem, you can connect. But the majority of the problems are not on those two scenarios. The majority of the problems are in the gray zone. You're not absolutely sure whether this is something legit or not. The approach of the industry is typically quarantine. So you wait and you do all your analysis. Maybe it can take you a couple of hours before you can provide access. We suggest something better. We think that we can give you access, but before that, we're going to take a snapshot of your database. Now, when you do the connection, imagine that the connection had no issues. You have a snapshot, nothing happens. But if there was an issue, if there was malware, because the moment the process starts kicking, your system will definitely know if it's good or bad once it started. You can stop it right there at the moment, and you can have zero downtime by repositioning the database from just seconds before. This is something unique in the industry. Nobody else has this at the moment. So we call this zero RPO. So that means that you're going to be attacked. And as I showed you before in the first two suites, you need to defend your end users to the apps. You need to defend the apps connecting from the public cloud to the private cloud. But if you are attacked, if you are breached, you must be able to get back to your position so that there's zero downtime, right? And this is what breach protection opens. How can we do this? Well, Cisco has a network all over the world. As you can imagine, we have customers all over the world. All the service providers are customers of Cisco. 90% of the internet traffic goes through Cisco equipment. But we also have Talos. I don't know if this is one of those little secrets. This is a company we have that basically deals with 550 billion security events per day. Because again, we have a network can see, you cannot do security just in your country or in your city or in your company. You must address security from a global perspective. You must have access to what may be happening somewhere in Eastern Europe that may trigger something later on in your part of the world. So we see 550 billion events per day. We have 500 people, but all of this is not possible to manage unless you use AI. So I know everybody's talking AI these days. We've been using AI for many years because that's the only way you can manage this at scale. The AI engine is the one that recognizes those patterns. If there's a funny email, if there's a funny connection, if there's a funny process being triggered, AI can recognize those patterns and bring it up as a potential vulnerability. Most recently, we acquired a company called Splunk. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They provide that glue between the networks, the security, observability, and AI. So that makes the Cisco portfolio probably the most complete in the industry at the moment. And this is, by the way, all this data on vulnerabilities, we offer it publicly because we agree that this is something that should be known. This is not just for us. This is not just for our customers. This is information that has to be shared to make us all safer. And when I look at Hong Kong, because we're in Hong Kong, obviously Hong Kong is a gateway hub and connector. And it's a gateway to China, has always been. Cisco started its business in China, now it's 30 years ago, 31 years ago, in Hong Kong. And that was our gateway into the mainland, right? Later on, we opened offices in Beijing. Now Hong Kong not only does that, but also is becoming the connector to global for many of the Chinese companies. Now, again, to do that, you must have an approach to cybersecurity that is global, because that's the customers are going to be dealing with global. And what we really like of our experience in working with the Hong Kong customers, public sector, is that the approach is extremely innovative. We've been, for example, involved in the scam meter application. I don't know if you guys have it. That's something that Cisco helped develop. We are one of the 9 consultancies that are in the cybersecurity task force in Hong Kong. And obviously, we are very committed to this market and looking forward to make it secure for the better of everybody in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fernando, for the insightful sharing. Thank you. And once again, welcome back to Hong Kong. We hope to see you again soon.